Homeschool debate. Okay, here we go.
Ideologies about their self-identification. I personally don't believe that belongs in the school.
I was socially...
Before you begin, what is your personal stance on homeschooling? Okay, this is what seems to be true. Homeschooled kids, as far as I know, end up actually performing better in society. They end up having more stable relationships. I have seen them score higher on longitudinal happiness indexes, so they seem happier, more happily married, lower divorce rate, and they generally actually make more money. Homeschooled kids make more money as they get older and blossom into adults. So it seems like by pretty much every metric of success, they seem to be doing well. Now, you might be able to say, is that a product of homeschooling necessarily? Or is it because families that can afford to homeschool, those kids have more parental involvement and are probably from more affluent families, so they were probably going to do better anyway. But
do you think it's hypocritical U.S. women say my body, my choice, and men can't have children so they shouldn't have an opinion, but then in same-stroke protests saying free Palestine, but they are neither from Palestine or Israel?
The my body, my choice argument is completely incompetent, right? Women don't have to sign up for the draft, but they are able to vote on American foreign policy, even though they aren't the ones that are going to be drafted if a war does break out. There is one piece of hypocrisy. Women, if you're a single mother, there's no dad in the picture, you get to decide whether or not your baby is circumcised. That's like a men's health thing, right? And so, yeah, I think that the your body, your choice, my body, my choice argument is completely incompetent. Also, we saw this double standard in full effect during COVID when there were a lot of people that normally chant my body, my choice that were advocating for unilateral vaccine government mandates, saying, well, actually, the government should have the right to tell people what they should and shouldn't do. So, yeah, I think it's a lot of hypocrisy. Anyway, no, it seems like homeschooled kids actually generally do pretty well. Whether or not they are weird, I was not homeschooled. I went to public school. There were a lot of fucking weird kids at public school. I was one of them. I was a really weird, socially awkward kid, and I went through 12 years of public school. There's a lot of weird kids in public school. I think that also, like, it depends on what you mean by weird. If by weird it means like you don't know all of the current pop culture memes, like you don't know Skibbity Riz Toilet Ohio fucking brain rot, then you know what? Maybe it's better off that you're a little bit weird. If that's what it means. Okay, so let's play the video here. Let's see what's up.
Awkward as a result of me being
Let's go.
A book existing is not the same as it being taught, it being in a curriculum.
But it is in curriculums.
They're not.
Well,
They're not.
Just stay.
Here we go.
That's the real life thing that it's not.
Okay, let's keep it that way.
I'm Caught, and today I'll be moderating the discussion, homeschooling versus public schooling.
Here we go.
The
Big
first
text.
prompt is,
Thank you, bro.
homeschooling can lead to more socially
true.
awkward children
True.
than public schooling. Can the agreeers please step forward?
Homeschooling can lead. Yeah, most certainly it can. But also I would say the same thing about public school. Public school can lead to more socially awkward children than homeschooling. I think it can go both ways.
I think we go for it.
Change their mind.
Well,
Reese, I would love to hear from you first.
okay, the reason why I'm sitting here is because I was socially awkward as a result of me being homeschooled, as in my own experience. I knew I would not have any social anxiety if I wasn't homeschooled because I was a very...
You can't say that. You cannot know that. Listen, I graduated high school, I was 18. I used to get so nervous that I would have irritable bowel syndrome, okay? If I had to answer a telephone from a stranger, I would get nervous and go shit my pants. If I had to order food at a restaurant, I would get nervous, anxious, and I would have stomach problems, okay? And I did 12 years of public school, so she cannot say that if she went to public school, that would not be an issue for her. It totally is sort of like personal situation.
Social kid in private school, like insanely social, that I would get kicked out of class for talking too much kind of thing. And in the moment I was homeschooled, I lost all of that. It took me a while when I was thrown out into the world. I had insane social anxiety. It was like, really bad. I couldn't be in a group of people and say hi to somebody because of how shy I was, how much social anxiety that I had. I feel like I only got along with younger kids and middle schoolers because socially I was on their level because I was so stunted. But that's just my experience of it. I know so many homeschoolers which are so devout developed socially. It was just me because in the household that I was in, I wasn't really being pushed out socially.
I feel very similar. Even though I was in public school my whole life, I was the biggest social butterfly everywhere. I would talk to everyone. I was like the class clown, do all that. And then it actually happened when COVID hit. When COVID hit,
manslaughter.
2 years just stuck at home.
Thank you, manslaughter.
Afterwards, my anxiety was so much worse. And I'm not saying that homeschoolers, all they do is keep their kids inside. I know that's not a reality, but I feel like homeschoolers are far more susceptible to it, and you have to be so much more active in order to get your kids out there and get them all these things.
It like really depends on how the parents push their kids out into the world. Like in my experience, I didn't have any of that.
You know what I think? Like, this is a bonus of homeschooling that I think you really don't get with public schooling. Homeschooling can actually teach kids how to be comfortable being alone and how to sort of come up with their own activities and entertain themselves. Do you think that's something that no one ever really talks about with homeschooling? Because I do. I know, in fact, this is exactly what this guy's talking about, is that for the first time during COVID, he was kind of alone and by himself, and it drove him fucking crazy, right?
That I had to do it on my own. And you know, if I had to do it on my own, I'm just gonna stay home and not go out.
Whereas public schools, it's kind of inherently in the system.
Like they
you
force
are
you to
gonna
do
socialize, you are gonna do all these
and
things.
you will learn how to do it whether you like it or not, kind of thing.
Let's bring in the disagreeers.
So I was, and I'll be honest, I still am a pretty socially awkward person, and I'm in public school. Like, for example, my freshman year of high school.
There you have it.
There was this like class-wide like group chat where there was.
Okay, I'm going to read this real fast. Humans are social creatures. I think being uncomfortable around other people is important. Yeah, I think that's totally true. At the same time, being homeschooled does not mean you're never around other people, right? I think like the proper way to homeschool is the kids are part of a church group or part of a sporting association, or they're part of some like sort of like homeschool co-op, and they see other kids, or they're part of a music team, or whatever, right? There are a lot of ways to get your kids to spend time with other people that are not public school, right? There's ways to do it where public school is not involved at all.
It was like 200 something members on it. It was like the class of 25, and someone posted a picture like of me, like on my face, like in my homecoming suit. You know, I was smiling in the photo and everything. And then like the person, he basically, he pinged everyone and said like, oh, this guy's ugly. This guy looks like an M&M. You know, he has crooked ass teeth. And looking back on it, like Wei said, like it's kind of funny to me, but like that really did mess me up.
Sure.
Like.
So what you're bringing up, this is a causality problem, y'all. There's not a root cause. Social awkwardness is a combination of a lot of things. These two gave great examples, but this social awkwardness is personality, experience, learning how to build friends. My kid, my 13-year-old, when he was 13, could read. And he came in one day and he says, I can't make friends. I don't get it. I don't understand. His mom said, why don't you read this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People? And he goes and reads it, and he comes back 2 days later and says, I totally get it now. And he's had friends and done great ever since.
Can I have that
Weird.
book?
Yeah, I'd like to
I haven't read that book. I've heard it's good, though.
piggyback on what you were saying. As a public school counselor, I'm seeing that the kids that are homeschooled are missing out on that social aspect, that peer-to-peer mingling with diverse people. From what I'm seeing, because they come back to visit, they're socially off in a way. Because they've been sheltered, they've been just under their parents. And I know homeschools sometimes put their kids in sports and they do other extracurricular things, but still that school peer-to-peer, learning how to socialize, learning how to make decisions, whether they're bad or good, it's learned in the public schools.
So this is something I've got to say. This idea that the only way, I don't think anyone in the chat is this dumb, but I think she is. This idea that the only conceivable way for a kid to become socially well-adjusted is in the public schools. That's retarded. That is retarded.
And a lot of times the parents are sheltering, or they think they're sheltering their kids from having exposure to some of those things.
Parents should have a say in what their children learn at school. Will the agreeers please step forward?
I feel like it's to a degree for me. I'm sure we disagree on the degree. I think small say. Mostly leave it to the educators, and
parents should have a say in what their children learn at school. Yeah, obviously, 100% they should. 100% they should.
You're probably not going to like a lot of what your kids are taught in school, and I feel like that's what's important about public schools. That's why I'm on this side. But I think it's important to learn and have that exposure to all these different diverse topics, diverse ideas, diverse everything. But I think it's silly to say that parents shouldn't have any say in what their kids are being taught. They're the parents. Absolutely.
But they're not, you said, you're not going to like a lot of what they taught.
I misspoke.
That's all right. I'm just going to
I doubt you'll hate a lot of it, but I'm sure there are some things.
Like, what are those things?
I'm sure maybe very religious people will want religion more taught, and not religious people will not want that taught. Political stuff, like with my students, I try and cover everything in a very fair way. I had a student come up to me and say, Mr. Kean, what's the difference between gay and LGBTQ? And then I tried to cover that in like a very fair way that like no parent could ever get offended by. And
What grade?
This was 3rd grade. He was curious, and he clearly had not like had that conversation at home or didn't feel comfortable talking with his parents about that. So I think stuff like that, I think it's so good that there's a safe space in public school for that, and that might be missing in homeschools.
Yeah.
Well, I think you brought up something really important right now, specifically about like religion, or like if public schools are, you know, if they're talking about like, let's say the Bible, bringing that into the curriculum or teaching about it.
Which it is right now. The 10 Commandments are being forced to be displayed in some.
Louisiana has become the first state to require that the 10 Commandments be displayed in every public school classroom. There you have that.
And it's the other side too. It's also not promoting, but you know, sending kids and their beliefs are bashed. You know, it's not just what you teach, it's what you maybe teach against. And it's not maybe intentional, but I think that's part of the conversation. It kind of cuts both ways.
I'm actually a public school teacher, but I recently started homeschooling my son. And it goes the same with political ideology too. You know, teachers are more open about their political ideologies, about their self-identification, things like that. I personally don't believe that belongs in the school. You are there to teach facts. You are not there to promote ideology.
I would think that that would come up so much more in homeschooling, no? But that was my assumption is.
If a parent wants to teach ideology to their children, that's their prerogative. If a government employee is trying to teach their ideology to children that are not theirs, that's entirely different. So yeah, it does come up more in the house, but it's the parent to child. What a ridiculous thing to say.
A lot of parents are doing it because they want their certain ideology to be taught.
Well, I feel like within the home, that's okay. If you come from a certain ethnic background or religious background, do you not want to pass that on, right? If you're Muslim or Japanese, don't you want to pass on your culture to your children? What's wrong with that?
But are you also teaching all of all the religion? Okay,
exactly.
so then now.
No, say no. Say, listen. I'm a Buddhist, and in my house, I'm a Japanese Buddhist, and in my house with my Japanese kids, I'm teaching them Buddhism because that's what my family has been for 900 years. I'm not teaching them the tenets of Islam. It's a Japanese Buddhist house. That's how we're going to do it. It's my family. It's my culture. Okay? There's literally nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But you need to teach them everything equally. So so we have 2 teacher government employees here, this fat black chick and this soy cock over here on the left who's out of the frame right now. You need to make sure that your kids are blank gray templates that show up to the classroom so that we can inject our shit into their brains. But you can't teach them anything in the house that is exclusive to your household. You need to make sure that they're just a blank slate that then we can write on. We can teach them whatever we want. Yeah, okay.
Would be the point.
We actually got our kids to argue both sides.
Yes, but it's not the case for all homeschool. But that would be.
Best homeschool.
But most of them.
The ideal.
Some exception doesn't say throw it out. We homeschooled all 5 of our kids from birth all the way to college. We taught our kids to think critically. So we'd go to movies even And after a movie, we'd go have nachos and we'd say, what do we like? What do we not? On religious views, on political views. Let's understand both sides so we can actually know what we're talking about. That was our homeschool.
So, you know, staying on this topic of like, yeah, should parents have a say in what is being taught at school? Let's talk specifically about like sexual education. Where do you all stand on that?
So a very good friend of mine is a Puerto Rican immigrant who was adopted by Jewish American parents. She's gone to a private Jewish school all of her life until high school. And I remember very clearly the topic of sex education came up in a conversation, and she basically told us that she had absolutely no education. And so like with public school, you know, like with so many students being there, you know, things are bound to happen. I feel like a lack of education for such a basic human function was really detrimental, where like she had to rely on her friend group to educate her on those things.
I understand what you're saying.
I feel like the proper way to do this is around the time kids go to middle school, you have like around the time kids are going through puberty, I don't know, what, 12, 13, middle school, 6th grade, you have like a sort of biological fundamentalist, you know, course on how this works, okay? It's, you know, men and women, they are different. They've got different gametes. A gamete for a woman is an egg. A man produces sperm. When a sperm interacts with an egg, then pregnancy can result, like whatever, right? And so I remember this is you know, pretty much the class that I had when I was 12 or 13, first year of middle school. And it was very, I remember, like, I actually have to give them credit. It was very just like textbook biology. That's how it works. And that being said, though, I remember in order to attend that class, your parent actually had to sign a permission slip for you to go to that class. So even then, even though it was very just basic biology, parents had to consent to it. Not every kid was given that. Some parents didn't want their kids to go to that class. I did, but not all of them did, right? I think that's a good way to do it.
I have known someone who was in a similar situation. They didn't get any education, and then they ended up in a situation that was unfortunate where they didn't know what was happening. So like, yes, we do want to make sure that there is some education, but I feel like predominantly that should take place within the home. Ideally, it doesn't always happen, but I feel like when we start promoting ideologies and self-identification and like all these things that are coming up these days, I feel like sometimes that gets a little too far. It also depends on what the age of the child is. You know, in homeschool, the nice thing is you can talk to your child when they are ready, because that's different for every child. Some kids are very curious very young, and some kids are just like, I don't even want to think about that. In the public schools, they seem to be bringing that down to a younger and younger age, which I don't agree with.
When you say promoting, I just wanted to jump on that word because that really stood out.
Okay.
We're not telling anyone you have to be this. We're not telling anyone this. I just say, these people exist, treat everyone with respect. That's all. That's all I say. I think that's all most teachers say.
I think that's great. But where I think we come from that's confusing is we look at some of the literature out there and what people are teaching, and I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, and it's like, it's not just teaching what, there's how-to in there. And how-to at really young ages.
Talking about like sex specifically.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
here's
that.
how-to.
Would you be able to lay out specific examples of that?
Just do some search on it. It doesn't matter, liberal, conservative, whatever. It's out there in detail, where it might be details on cunnilingus or flush. You know, it's
There are all types of books like this. Like there are like children's books, how to have anal sex. I'm not kidding you. Another book that comes to mind, we've talked about this on stream before. There was a book specifically I remember called The Gay ABCs, and it was a book teaching kids how to sing the ABCs. And there was a like LGBTQ word associated with every letter. So A stands for, B stands for bisexual, whatever, right? And so every letter had something that was associated with being LGBTQ+, which I think really has no place in a classroom. That's my personal opinion.
Positions and all this stuff to elementary kids, and it's happening.
There was a library book at my my library, and it was a picture book written down for like first graders, and it literally showed positions. These are different ways that your mommy can do it with your daddy.
Would you be able to state the book, like the name of that book?
I believe it was something facetious, like you come from an egg, and then it was like talking about, well, it's not really from an egg. I can't remember the exact name of the book, but I can look it up.
I don't know the school district that you had worked at.
I will say, well, that wasn't at a school I worked with. It was just at the library. But
this fat chick on the right, she's the type of person that would say, do you have a source? It's not happening. Oh, it is happening? Well, here's why it's a good thing. It's not happening, but if it is happening, here's why it's actually okay. That's exactly what she's doing.
The public library.
Yes, but I've seen things like that within other schools as well. I've seen things in other more liberal places. I've seen posts online about, look at, this is an actual book from the curriculum, like the ABCs of LGBT, you know, different things like that. It is happening. It's just not everywhere.
Right. But speaking from a public school perspective, I teach here in Los Angeles, and I would say that's probably one of the most liberal areas where you could be. And again, just this could be a solo experience, but I have never experienced any of that, such radical type of things in the school setting. You said the public library. That's completely different. I taught 5th grade, and that's where puberty starts happening, all of the changes. We keep constant communication with parents, changing bodies, all of this. These are the topics we're gonna talk about. Here's a permission slip because we're talking about these topics. We keep that avenue open with parents.
Yeah, in
and
most
it's up to the parent
cases, but not all cases.
Yeah, I just wanted to differentiate because I hear this so much online.
I don't believe her.
People say
I don't believe her.
They're teaching our kids this. Like, a book existing is not the same as it being taught, it being in a curriculum, and I think it's
But it
super
is in
important.
curriculums too.
You think that book is in
But you were
curriculum?
speaking
Well, not that
towards
one
public
specifically,
school.
but books with that.
And
I've
if they
seen-
are in curriculums, you'd agree with us, that's bad.
But are
So
they? They're not.
Well,
They're
why-
not.
They're
let's
not.
just study.
I think that's the real life
yeah.
thing that it's not.
Okay, let's keep it that
I
way.
think it sounds
Great.
No, absolutely. I
Great.
agree with you that
So
it's
if
out.
And so, like, if you provided them an example, right, and I'm sure you can find them, I'm sure you can. Like, okay, let me ask you this. Why do you think Florida, about a year and a half ago, banned all of these types of books from their schools? Isn't the implication there that these books are in the schools? If Florida made a selection of books and banned them from the schools, you think they just are banning books that don't exist? Or do you think, okay,
If I give you the evidence,
I would
you'll
love it.
convert.
Not convert.
You'll
Or
convert.
I would say that's bad. I don't think that speaks.
you know what, now I'm actually curious. Hold on, let's follow through on that. Florida banned LGBTQ books. Can I find a list of these books? Okay. Hold up. These 300 books are banned from some schools in Florida. I want an entire list. I don't want to see just a couple of them. I want to see the entire list. Because I'm sure the least controversial will be listed. Okay. Okay, so there's one image. So a bunch of these ones are banned. You have a
The
YouTube
book
video?
burnings in Germany in the 1930s are widely mentioned in the media.
Never heard about that. I guess you'd have to go through these one by one. But anyway, here's a list of 300 books that Florida has specifically banned. Like, maybe we can find some cover images here. Like, maybe that would help a little bit. Anyway, they've picked 300 books that they don't like. Children of Dune by Frank Herbert gotta go. You know, I'm just gonna read some names here. Hold up. A Bad Boy Can Be Good for a Girl. Later Gator, Out of Darkness, The Breakaways, Beautiful, The Glass Castle. Embrace, A Complicated Love Story Set in Space. Bad Boy, Between Mom and Joe. Breathless, Fancy White Trash Gingerbread, Graceling. If I Was Your Girl. They called themselves the KKK. Uh-oh. Oh, do you have a better list? Hold up. I feel like this is not exactly. What are we looking at here? Click on link to challenged books. Okay. Here we go. Oh. Holy fuck. Okay. Okay, so this is actually like a decent website. They've got a spreadsheet here with a bunch of books that are banned, and it actually, for some of them, it gives them reasons why. Graphic pics, graphic pics, graphic pics, graphic pics, graphic pics, graphic sketches. Queer, the ultimate guide, the ultimate LGBTQ guide for teens. The Pride of Baghdad, graphic pics. That's Slaughterhouse-5, graphic pics. Fade includes sex between siblings. That's why that one was banned. Better Nate Than Ever, elementary. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Sex between adult and a minor. Bag of Bones. This includes necrophilia. Okay. The Running Dream. Link. There's a link found in the book that leads to a porn website. Okay. Okay. Well, someone is fucking tracking this. Oh, there's a PDF of every book here, actually. Well, I mean, I'm not going to open up the fucking graphic pic options, but like, isn't it insane that some of these books, graphic pics, are available in elementary school or middle school libraries, but also I would be banned if I showed them on Twitch. Think about that for a second. I would be banned for showing some of these books on Twitch, but they are available in elementary school libraries. That's a little bit fucking crazy to think about. Anyway, I'm going to close this. That's wild.
If you find like one example, that's not going to convert
but
me.
she's framing it that way.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if you're going to frame it that way, and if they are in curriculums, you'd agree with us, that's bad.
But are they? They're not.
Well,
They're not.
They're
let's
not.
just study.
I think that's the real life thing that it's not.
Okay, let's keep it that way.
I think it sounds
Great.
No, absolutely. I agree with you that
so
it's out
if I
there.
give you the evidence,
I would
you'll
love it.
convert.
Not convert.
You'll
Or
convert.
I would say that's bad. I don't think that speaks. If you find like one example,
I'm
that's not
saying,
going to convert
but
me.
she's framing it that way.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if you're going to frame it that way,
If
let me
that's
play
what you
that
want to
game.
hear, that's okay.
It's
I'm
not
sure
what I
that's
wanna hear,
what
it's
was
what you're
taught in the homeschooling
Yeah, is
situation
that how
too.
it goes?
Right.
I'm fine saying that's a bad thing. That
Yeah.
shouldn't
I
be in
agree.
school. I don't think it
Right.
is being taught in
I
any
think we
curriculum.
all
Our
agree.
kids,
Never
You're
heard.
saying
We're going back.
in your experience, you have not seen that to be the case at all.
once.
So you found
Never.
something, maybe
Oh,
a
yeah,
school where you
lots.
saw it
In
happen.
school.
In this day and age where you have giant billboards and commercials and blatant all this sexual stuff in the songs and kids are inundated with it, your child could be watching something and then the widgets or whatever make it go on to something else. So now it's here. Or you heard that Johnny and Fred were doing something in the bathroom and now everyone's whispering about it. Well, you better address it. If it's not getting addressed in I think the best way to do it would be to bring the children and the parents into an assembly and then kind of go over the incident that happened.
But it sounds like you're making an argument for more comprehensive understanding of these things.
Well,
that
if
should
it
be taught
comes
in
up,
school.
I don't think children should be like, oh, you shouldn't hear about this yet because you're not old enough. No, if you already opened up this kind of can of worms and they're only 4, then they need to know why such and such has 2 mommies, if that's one of your friends that you hang out with at the playground.
So do you agree that sex ed should take place in the public schools?
I think so, and parenting classes, for sure. They should bring all of that stuff back. Home ec, taking care of the egg.
What
and keeping it-
age? What age should sexual education start?
Thing is, it's really on how the children mature. Like,
So, like, here's what I'm thinking. If there's a kid in the class that has 2 moms, she said age 4, this is pre-kindergarten. why does the pre-K need to talk about lesbians? Like, why can't that just be a conversation with the parents to the kids? Like, if the kids have a question about that, the teacher can say, you know what, you should go home and ask your parents about that. You know, you should ask your mom about that. You should ask your dad about that, right? Why does it need to be included in the curriculum? Why can't this just be a parental conversation, right?
What age are they mature enough to understand it and not just see it as something that's scary or see it as, you know, like immaturely?
As a homeschool dad and family, if they had not asked us by the age of 9, we would tell them. Because we wanted to stay ahead of the conversation for them to not get caught and surprised.
How old was I when I learned about sex? Like I said, I think like probably 12 or 13, around the time like kids were going through puberty. Like maybe at the very end of the 5th grade or the start of the 6th grade is when we had our first like very basic biology, like sex class. How does it work?
And at that time, you know, where we were.
But also when I say how it works, like there was no graphic imagery. It was very, very like biologically essential.
That was
is
good.
What it was.
So we explained it all, and every kid said, "Oh, so y'all have had it 3 times, number of kids." And I go, "Well, there's more to it." So.
Trying to finish writing my 2nd book after receiving a bestseller.
Nope.
Kids are safer at home than in schools.
Ooh. So this is just going to be like, what are the odds of your parents beating you versus a school shooter or a teacher like molesting you? All right, here we go. Debate time. Here we go.
This is a really hard one because you know how kids in school will sometimes be going to school to get away from whatever's at home. Or it could be vice versa. Like kids will stay home from school because they don't want to deal with what's in school. But I think generally, they probably would be safer at home, especially with like the school shooting situation. Like, you know, they're way safer at home in that kind of situation.
Listen, it's like really funny that the first place you go to a school shooting, when if I had to bet money, I would bet like 100, 1,000, 1,000 times more kids get raped or molested at school than shot at school. Probably even more than 1,000. Probably more than 1,000-fold. Okay, that's a real fucking problem.
Situation, but it really depends on like what kind of household they have and what kind of school environment that they have.
Yeah, like back in May, my school had this like sort of shooting incident where someone had backfired a car, but they adjusted the car to make it sound like gunfire. So basically, students heard that, thought gunfire was going on, and it was crazy. Like, people were just running everywhere. People were running onto the streets. There were like 200 kids at the lobby of a Chase Bank right down the street from the school. Like, they were like running onto the streets, like jumping into people's backyards, trying to hide from a shooter. And so thank goodness it wasn't real gunfire, that nobody got hurt, at least in the way that you'd think. But yeah, like that is obviously a growing concern. So yeah. So.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's hard to say that students wouldn't be safer in a sheltered community, especially in America. If we were in another country, I might have stayed back for this one, with the exception of if home is not a safe space.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that, and that is the reality for so many kids.
Yeah,
it is.
I know a lot of people that
say.
were like victims of being in a school where there were school shootings. They were homeschooled as a result of that because of the trauma that they experienced.
Just one other thing about safety is just that a lot of times in public school there's bullying as well. So that's just another thing about, you know, you don't really have that in the homeschool as much. I mean, maybe like sibling rivalry and stuff, but typically not as much bullying.
Right. We catch it pretty fast.
Yeah.
So do we. We do.
No, you don't. Shut the fuck up. This teacher just said, we catch. No, you don't. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. He's acting like they're able to totally shut down bullying in public schools. Shut the fuck up.
I disagree. Being a school counselor, I hear some stories you would never, ever, you could never imagine. So safe for me looks different. Parents are, you know, not always making the best decisions at home. Some homes have uncles and aunts that have been exposed to things that they may not need to be hearing about, like, you know, former prison people or sex at home. The parents are thinking, oh, their kids are in the room and they're studying, and they can go off in the room and do whatever, and the kids are listening to all that. Exposure to, and they're on their iPads. When the parent walks away, they're watching inappropriate content.
And these are real stories that
These are real stories that I'm hearing from the homeschool kids. Parents dip off. They go off. They're washing clothes. They're making phone calls. They're doing things that, you know, that the kids now are not being monitored. Where for 7 hours, those kids at a public school are being monitored. So safe for me looks different.
You would hope that your home is a safe place.
Yeah.
But
I don't think like the worst case horror stories of what can go on inside of a child's house are like that compelling of a reason for never homeschooling, like not allowing people to homeschool their kids. Do you guys think that's a good argument? Like, yes, bad things happen in houses, but that does not mean that homeschooling should not be allowed.
your home
Or that public schooling is like unilaterally better than homeschooling.
sadly could be a cage for a child. And I know people.
Because I think for every terrible homeschool story where the parents were abusive and they never let the kid leave the house and whatever, I think you could equally have, you know, I went to like I'm just gonna make up a story which is totally plausible, right? Teacher molests a student and the student isn't comfortable talking about it, and every day the student has to go back to that classroom and sit in the class and get educated by the person that molested them, and they've got no one to tell, and they're scared or threatened to tell, and they have to spend the entire year going to that classroom. Like, okay, and you can come up with these situations, right, that are totally real and valid. So I think it goes both ways. Just like bad things happen, or bad things can happen all over the place.
Where I feel like, gosh, I wish that child did not have to be at home. If you're a single mom and you're homeschooling and you have to work all day, but your neighbor fills in the gap and is part of your village, then home is the best place. But if your child is at home and you give them stuff to do and they're watching porn all day, it's a problem. That's not a safe place.
So you think overall, being in schools is safer than being at home?
If your child if they're babysitting themselves, absolutely put them in school.
I agree with that.
I think speaking from experience, just having had the public school setting, what you touched on was so perfect. Being able to have that community of people, of adults really, who are empathetic, who are able to assist in ways that maybe not at home. I grew up low income and in a very kind of like sheltered Pentecostal home, and a lot of ideas are spoken down on women. So as my brothers were playing video games or doing whatever they'd like to do.
You were cooking.
I'm cooking, cleaning, doing all this, asking for orders, you know, oh, what do you want? What do you need? Kind of thing. And it was just almost like, here I am, I'm the daughter, I have to do X, Y, and Z. So a lot of times school was my escape. I would stay longer at school. I joined all the extracurriculars. I joined all of everything.
That's a good point.
Because there was no way that I was gonna be able to stay at home and have anything be taught to me that was an idea where I could be empowered, or I could be this, I could be that. Like all of the possibilities were not there at home. So yeah.
Enjoying this prompt, or are you itching to ask our cast better questions? Well,
like I said, like we're just sort of comparing worst case scenarios. Well, this is my worst case scenario, so it's actually worse than your worst case scenario. Well, actually, I have an even worse case. It's like, okay. Yeah, there's worst case scenarios everywhere. Yeah.
Homeschool kids are smarter than public school kids.
Ooh.
Will the agreeers please step forward?
Here we go, baby. I think the problem here is the word smarter. Like if you wanted to say homeschooled kids achieve higher, homeschooled kids score higher on standardized tests, that is true, right? Homeschooled kids achieve higher levels of education throughout their entire life, that is true. That doesn't necessarily make you smarter, though.
Okay, then let's actually have the disagreeers come forward, which is everybody.
In USA? Yeah, we're talking about America. We're not listen, America's the only country that matters, and so that's why we're only talking about America.
So as a senior in a public high school, I am going to be completely honest. I don't believe that either side has any superiority over the other. It doesn't I wouldn't say I wouldn't say that strictly homeschooled students are better educated than public school students, but I would say I could probably say there's maybe a better consistency among homeschooled students.
I would argue that in homeschool, a good homeschool, you could have more opportunities tailored to you to kind of fast track you to getting more knowledge, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're a smarter person. It just means you have more access to resources.
Jumping on what Danica said, as a public school teacher, there are definitely a lot more resources, especially to individualized things and services. But I think with students that have more challenges, a public school education is a little more helpful in regards to resources in comparison to a homeschool education where the parenting teacher is taught only so much, Of course, how you were saying, in a well-rounded homeschool situation, you have that education, which is awesome.
Real quick, I want to talk about a stat. We talked about this probably 3 hours ago. 50% of high school graduates do math at the top level of third graders. So if you take a look at the mathematical skills of the top 1% third graders in the country, that top 1% of third graders right now in this country is equal to 50% of high school graduates. Okay? This is a colossal failure of the school system,
Awesome.
Of the public school system.
I feel like in a lot of situations, that's not necessarily the case.
The question was asked about smarter, and I think what we're talking.
Are you considering homeschooling? Yeah, what we do with our kids is going to depend a lot on where we live and what our circumstances are.
About is better educated, or homeschoolers better educated than public school. But you've got to add
depends on a lot of things.
For what? Are they better equipped for college? Are they better equipped for life? Are they street smart or educated? I had a son who made a perfect SAT math result. He finished calculus on his 15th birthday. He was smart, but the others, 2 of them did about as well, and 2 of them nothing close to that. So even inside of a homeschool, anywhere you have ranges, and depending on what they're going for and what they're getting educated for, it's going to be a different game.
I think also for students being able to build resilience and to be able to cope, a lot of that is learned in school, the norms and things like that.
Cope how? By eating? By consuming every single thing within a one mile radius? Cope with what?
I've seen homeschool students, they're not able to cope as quickly, or it takes a lot longer to kind of work through things. In real life, things happen, things don't go your way. Challenges, yes. And I've seen
overcome challenges.
To overcome challenges.
Yes. Gotcha.
Exactly.
I would bet 99 out of 100 times that homeschooled kids are more emotionally resilient than public school kids. That's my bet, that they are better at overcoming emotional hurdles or emotional challenges. I would totally bet on the homeschooled kids every single time. I think there's pros and cons going both ways, but with that specifically, I would bet on the homeschooled kids.
Those experiences.
Exactly. Because I feel like the parent comes and saves the day often, or just depending on the parenting skills and all of that.
Yes.
I definitely see that as well. In my experience, my son...
If that lady wasn't fat, would you hear what she said any differently? If she wasn't fat, she wouldn't be saying that. Because what she's saying is a product of fat logic. It's called fat logic. So a thin person would not even say that.
Since I'm an educator, I've been kind of pushing him and teaching him his whole life. And so he's one of the above average, at least in my view. And so when I had him in public school for a few years, he was kind of getting overlooked because he wasn't one of the ones that needed the support. And so it was always very easy. They were doing math that was lower than his level. And so when I pulled him from homeschool and I started giving him more challenging work that was at what I thought was his level, he actually had a much harder time. He didn't have that resilience because in public school it was just too easy for him. And I kind of had that same experience. I talked to my sister too. We were all public schooled and it was a breeze going through school, and then all of a sudden high school or college hits and it's like, whoa, we have to work. So it doesn't always give you resilience.
Public school itself isn't necessarily the gold bar standard for graduating resilient and healthy. There's isolation, there's clique groups, there's bullying, there's higher suicide rates, there's threats.
That's where they grow in resilience.
Well, I know, but that doesn't, just because you have the experience, it doesn't mean you come out matured through it. Sometimes
Yeah, so she's saying like all of these sort of like uniquely fucked up things about the public school experience, that they necessarily result in increased resilience amongst children. I don't think you can say that.
you're traumatized by it.
Would you say that you would try to save your children from trauma? That's why you homeschooled them?
No, I tried to get them more educated, more effective. When we lived in West Texas, what I thought the schools were doing didn't match what I think my kids were able to do and capable of getting to.
May I
So
ask?
our motive was academic because the school wasn't pulling off what we wanted.
May I ask, what was your career, you and your wife, that you felt comfortable to homeschool your, and that's the reason for my question.
Part of it, it's a great question, part of what convinced us to homeschool was as we looked at what was happening, we thought the worst we could do is tie, honestly. And then inside of that, with our own background, so I had a liberal arts background, English literature and Latin and languages and other stuff. So liberal arts is about freedom, freeing arts. So when you teach people diversity of things like math and literature, et cetera, they learn how to learn. So our philosophy was to grow kids into adults that knew how to learn. And so ours was a skill development focus, not a knowledge.
That is a good shirt.
Of just data focus.
Yeah, okay.
So there's an experimental piece, and we wanted to see if we could put out some problem solvers in the world. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So I grew up in Florida, and I'm a homeschooling mom for the last 19 years of 6 children.
Damn.
I remember being in high school and making straight A's and saying, I didn't learn anything. I graduated with like a 4 point whatever, and I did not learn anything. I did not learn how to learn until I went to college. I said, for my children, I want them to love learning, and I want them to know how to learn in any environment. So my kids have been
She's offended because the implication is that teachers suck, but it's true. That's why homeschoolers test better, teachers suck ass. You know, I don't know if you can say they suck ass. I think it depends on a lot of situations. But yeah, I think there's like a certain amount of personal offense that can be taken by teachers here, because it's like, I went through 4 years of university, and I got my master's degree in education, in childhood education, and I've been a teacher for 9 years. And who the fuck is this random woman or the random person that is just like, they're just a mom? They just squeezed out a bunch of kids, and she thinks she's better at this than I am, right? So I think there's a certain amount of ego involved, right? Or hubris or whatever.
mainly homeschooled. At 4, they pick something that they want to try, and they've all stuck with it, whatever they try. So my daughter started dancing. She dances for Norwegian. She got her associate's degree at 17. My son is going to Embry-Riddle to be a pilot.
Middle school teacher, too much pressure to handle 30 kids at once. Dude, it's got to be a really, really hard job. In fact, I mean, you probably know this better than anyone, is that the smaller the classroom, the better the results, right? And so if you have 30, I think even that's probably too many. Some classrooms have fucking 45 kids in the classroom. It's like, what the fuck? How is anyone going to learn anything in this? You spend more time wrangling kids and making sure they're all just fucking giving you your attention than you do actually teaching anything.
And I have an artist. She could care less about math and English for the most part. She will make art out of anything, furniture, sewing. And I'm like,
chocolate.
I
Good
push
evening,
her
bro.
to finish
bro.
her GED, or do I just let her keep being an artist?
So, okay, it's been, God, I don't know, 12 years since I finished high school. These days in public school, do kids put their cell phone in a basket when they enter the classroom? Like, are kids, do the kids have the cell phone in their pocket or do you have to check it into a bin or a basket? I don't know how it works these days. Because I remember when this is 2011. I was a junior. We had one teacher that did not allow cell phones in the classroom. You had to put the cell phone in a basket when you entered the room. And so I would imagine that's like probably how it is mostly these days. Because now fucking 12 years later, every kid has a fucking cell phone, right? I don't know, but you can I was just at the beginning of smartphones entering the classroom. I imagine these days it's just probably a fucking nightmare. A nightmare, I would imagine.
How do I navigate this? So with each child it's different, but when we think about smart, I'm like, what is the education for? Is it grooming them to be workers? Rockefeller said that he wants education to create workers, not thinkers. I wanted thinkers. So that is why I took this route.
Based. There you go. Okay, what did this say? My wife just started working in the school. She was going to be a substitute, then transition to teaching next year. They have her subbing for a woman on maternity leave for 3 months, teaching something she doesn't know. Their engineering teacher doesn't know engineering. It's weird. They have teachers who don't know the subjects. I'm sure that is common enough. I'm sure that's common enough.
Wow. Are you excited?
I actually, I remember very clearly having a science teacher that was frankly not very good. And we actually just watched two days out of the week, so 40% of the time we were watching Bill Nye. We called it the Bill Nye class. And also we watched Mythbusters. It was Mythbusters and Bill Nye. 2 days out of the week, we go to the class, lights off, no lesson, the teacher's just like at the computer, just fucking off. And we have Bill Nye or Mythbusters up on the TV, up on the projector. And that's what we would do 40% of the time. What is this? Homeschool parents are not qualified.
Higher levels of education. I think in elementary school, we have an elementary school teacher here. Obviously, they're qualified for that. But once you get up to middle school, high school, the topics start getting a lot harder, and you really...
I think it depends on the topic specifically, right? Like I would not feel comfortable teaching my kids calculus, algebra, probably stats. I would feel comfortable teaching history. I think I could teach English. I know I could teach, but I think it's really like topic specific. The answer to this question.
Really do have to specialize in the field you're gonna teach. Like when I was in high school, even like sophomore, junior year, my mom stopped being able to help me with homework for most of my classes, and she's been a teacher for the last 30 years. Math, English, social studies, history, it's just not her sweet spot, and that's from a lifelong learner, a lifelong educator. She would not have been able to handle those topics. And that doesn't even begin to talk about electives. Like, who's gonna do better?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, dude. Homeschooling parent that's doing their best, or someone who is teaching graphic design who has worked as a graphic designer for 30 years?
I think I really would just want to start by saying...
How many teachers are... Wait, what? How many teachers are there that are teaching graphic design that have worked? That's probably like a super fringe case, probably not so common. Sax, thank you. No, I don't know. Thank you, Sax. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot.
Saying that everyone is qualified to learn the profession, but I think immediately coming into it, maybe not so much. I don't know personally.
I could teach anything better than her. I don't even know what she does. I don't know what she does. I could do literally any single thing on this planet better than her. I don't care what the topic is. I could do it better other than eating food.
If there's any training processes or classes that they have to go through or tests that have to be taken. But as a public school teacher, I have my C-BEST, my C-SET, the RECA, all of these exams, all of these observations, tests, everything. It's a very strenuous process, especially in California, in order to be an educator. And for a parent to just kind of go and say, I'm gonna do all of these things for my one child, my whatever, X amount of children.
Okay, here's the problem with what she's saying though, is that as far as I know, homeschooled kids test better. Have you guys heard the same thing? That seems to be the case, is that homeschooled kids test more highly, they score more highly on standardized tests. And so I'm not really sure where she's coming from. She has like a very theoretical approach, but I'm not sure that like that's actually true what she's saying.
Is just interesting to me, really.
You know what could be the case? I don't know. Like we'd have to look this up. Is that maybe the absolute highest testers are public school kids in like advanced placement classes, but the median test scores are higher for homeschooled kids. So like that could be conceivable. I don't know, but who knows?
I feel like this is such an insanely generic prompt, which is why I didn't like either agree or disagree, because there are homeschool parents who aren't well qualified. There are public school teachers who aren't well qualified. For my experience though, it was a bit different because I was homeschooled by my parents up until junior high school, but even though they were still like my educators, as it got into the harder subjects like, you know, calculus, chemistry, stuff like that, I started doing online classes. But it's still considered like, you know, cyber schooling, kind of like what everyone was doing during the COVID pandemic. So I had actual like professors going on like Zoom calls. We used something called Adobe Connect before Zoom existed. And I was being educated through them with, you know, like my mom just pretty much checking in to make sure I'm getting all my work done, stuff like that. But it was still like a homeschool environment, except I was getting taught by specialists that weren't my parents, because, you know, as you said earlier, like it's hard to educate your child in the harder subjects, especially if.
Okay, I'm just curious here. I've got this. Okay, this is the National Home Education Research Institute. So maybe they're going to be selective with the information they present, but let's go through. Okay, so we're talking academic performance right now. You were looking at that? Okay. Let's pause here for a second. Academic performance. The home educated typically score 15 to 25 percentile points above public school students on standardized academic achievement tests. The public school average is roughly 50th percentile, sure. Scores range from 1 to 90, okay. A 2015 study found that black homeschooled students to be scoring 23 to 42 percentile above black public school students. Okay, that's actually a wider margin here with a higher top end than for white, or just like everyone. Yeah, that's not specifically white, but 78% of peer-reviewed studies on academic achievement show homeschool students perform statistically significantly better than those in institutional schools. Homeschool students score above average on achievement tests regardless of their parents' level of formal education or their family's household income. That's actually kind of surprising. Whether homeschool parents were ever certified teachers is not notably related to their children's academic achievement. Degree of state control and regulation of homeschooling is not related to academic achievement. Degree of state control and regulation of homeschooling is not related to academic achievement. Okay, so I guess depending on the state, there's probably more government involvement in how you homeschool your kid, and this is saying that regardless of how much government involvement or input or oversight, it doesn't matter. Home-educated students typically score above average on the SAT and ACT tests that colleges consider for admissions. Homeschool students are increasingly being actively recruited by colleges. That's actually kind of hard to believe. Is this true? Are universities target recruiting homeschooled kids? I kind of have a hard time believing that. You want a link? Yeah, I'll link this to you. Oh, fuck. Hold up. Reload. Copy. There you go. Okay. Yeah, I guess if they have better grades, but that wouldn't be homeschool specific. That would just be like based on their grades, right? Anything else we can read right now? Let's just keep playing the video, I guess. Maybe we can touch base with this later. We'll see what's up.
If they're not specializing in that kind of thing.
So you would agree it was not your homeschool parent that was teaching you? Up to that point.
They were teaching me some of my curriculum, but I was also getting taught by people that specialize in a certain subject.
Right, because they weren't qualified to that point.
And they knew that. They knew that, and that's why they enrolled me into online classes.
Yeah, I wanted to add, you know, that's the reason I didn't come and sit down. And it is because, you know, some of them are educated, and wouldn't it be wonderful if all homeschool parents were educators?
Yeah,
you
not
know?
everybody
But
is.
the realistic thing about, you know, they're not. Not all of. We have such great homeschool parents representing homeschool, but in reality, that's not the case. We have quite a few parents who say, "Oh, I'm just going to keep my kid at home and I'm going to teach them," and they're.
Is Kathy feeling okay? Haven't seen her in chat in a while. Yeah, I mean, she's just taking care of a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, so she's really busy. Kathy, real quick, Kathy update. Kathy has developed over the last couple weeks an autistic obsession. There's no other way to put this. Hi, sweetie.
I heard that because I was listening to this room. I just wanted to say hi.
I'm going to tell them what you've been doing.
I'm making stew right now.
You're making stew? Well, I'm hungry. I'm hungry right now.
You want me to bring in stew in like 5 minutes?
Yeah.
I don't have bread for it, but I'll just get you some.
That's fine. Thank you. You want to know what she's doing? Chill. Do you want to know what she's been doing?
Yo, how's the fam?
Oh, it's good. I'm going to tell you. My wife, thank you, for the last couple weeks has been obsessed with monitoring air traffic. So she, on one of her monitors, has an air traffic monitor, and she's watching planes land and take off, and also she's listening to the air traffic control tower. It's a public radio line, and she's listening. I'm not even kidding. While she's taking care of the kids, she's listening 6 hours a day probably to air traffic control, watching planes land and take off. And so every day for the last several weeks, I come upstairs, I'm getting ready for bed. I go talk to my wife at the end of the show, and she tells me some crazy story. Oh my God, you would not believe what happened with this airplane today. You would not believe what they said in the air traffic control tower today. I'm like, really? I can't wait to hear. Tell me, sweetie. Tell me. I need to know what happened at the air traffic control tower today. And so that's her thing. She's been buying books on airplanes. She's been reading about airplanes every day. Is she a terrorist? No, probably not. Probably not, but she's into airplanes. She loves airplanes and monitoring and tracking airplanes. So that's what she does.
Reasoning is not because some of the reasons you have. It's because they want to shelter them. Oh, there's drugs in the schools. Oh, there's bullies in the schools. And so they're keeping them at home and they're homeschooling them when they're really not. You know, I applaud the people on the panel, you know, but let's face it, you're not credentialed in chemistry and physics and biology, whereas I feel like homeschool teachers are kind of channeled in the one area that they may be strong in. I know there's curriculum out there and they can go get that information and they can work with their kids, but why not have it within their school? The kids are getting it firsthand from that teacher, not necessarily the curriculum.
If qualified teachers was the solution, all the schools would be putting out great students, but they're not. There's a different game in play. My wife basically thought of herself as the chief learning officer of our homeschool. And our goal was to cause them to learn. It wasn't tabula rasa thinking that we've got to put it in their brain, but more educatory, education. We draw it out. And so what we're trying to do is invite the kids to learn to be their own teachers. You taught yourself a lot of this stuff with or without your parents or whatever, because you had to get in.
A lot of self-discipline was involved.
Yeah, and you had to figure it out. That's part of it.
I think that's a huge misconception about public schools is that we don't teach them to learn. We just fill them with
No, I was
facts.
responding to what she actually said, because the game is, if you're not qualified as parents and all, you can't teach them, they can't exceed you. All of our kids exceeded us, every one of them. Not through that, but through wrestling with the material and learning.
But it's not only qualifications in the facts in your knowledge, in your mind. It's qualification in how to teach, how to do these things. If you've spent 20 years learning how to teach and actually practicing that, you're gonna be better at teaching kids how to learn.
Maybe not.
Going into following instinct over education.
I think maybe's the answer.
I think kind of what Fred was speaking to was a more militant style of education where teacher speaking, students listen and notes. Just speaking towards what he had said. But as someone who is still actively in the classroom, students are leading conversations all the time. If a student has a thought that not even I thought of, but it's something that would expand the conversation. Let's talk more about that. Why did you think that? I'm not pushing my own narrative into these students. They're able to build and cultivate their own style of learning, and they're able to kind of discuss that with their peers.
Public schools are the best way to expose children to diverse groups.
Ooh. Yeah, no, that's probably true, right? I think so. Like, is your child going to be exposed to a more diverse group of people in public school or homeschool? Even if as a homeschool person you are taking them to your church group and sporting event and music lessons and whatever, still I think public school probably is more diverse.
Working in public schools for the last 3 or 4 years, it's been so great because I work with such a diverse community that I feel like just doesn't exist in the homeschooling community just because of the nature of, even though there are so many good programs, I've looked into like a lot of great like homeschooling programs just to learn more about it. They all are under the assumption of like they're all homeschooling parents, so they all have that same underlying principle. They all have similar values in that one way, whereas public school being the baseline just kind of inherently has more people, more different ideas, more different cultures, more different everything. And so it's like forced integration in a way because you're forced to see these people every day. You're forced to interact with them. You learn more about them and you get to see them in every human way you could want to see different groups of people.
Absolutely.
I think also aside from diversity in culture, you have diversity in socioeconomic systems. Growing up, very low income, I'm a product of public school. You know, I was getting free lunch. Teachers would be so kind and so sweet to buy sweaters for me when it got cold, things like that. But you would also see, you know, your peers who don't want their shoes creased or, you know, having the best this and that. You're able to open up to others. You're able to speak to different situations that you might have never experienced if you were, you know, you're able to just kind of open up just to other people, really.
I homeschooled
I want to see why they disagree.
our 5 kids, or my wife and I did, but I grew up in public school in Alabama and private school and university. A lot of these experiences, what I saw and what I see today still happening, is you still got cliques and you still got this group, and I guess it's emo and preppies and this and that, and claiming that, hey, it's an opportunity for diversity to work and the process actually works are 2 different things. I would think we would have a better product by now with these decades of arguing diversity is going to make us get along. I'll tell you.
Yeah, I think this presupposition that all of this diversity is conducive to learning or success, it's a presupposition. You need to actually prove it. You need to really thoroughly explain why you think it is better, and then the results have to be there to justify it, right? And so this is kind of what he's saying. Is it really better? Yeah, there's more diversity, but is it really better for learning?
Where everybody learns to get along. Sports events, social engagement.
Like I'll give you one example. This is 2010. I'm going to high school. I think my high school probably was 15-20% Hispanic. We had groups of Hispanic kids in my high school that literally never spoke English, and I never even really interacted with one time because they did not speak English. And so yeah, it's diverse, but there's like 0 interaction. You can't be friends. You can't really. And so it was a little bit just like kind of standoffish, I guess, just because you can't communicate, but you're also coexisting in the same school. I guess what the fat brown woman over there would say is that, well, I mean, still that's a positive diversity because now you're aware that not everyone speaks your language. Yeah. Now I am aware. I'm aware that not everybody speaks my language. Yeah, true. Okay, there you go. There's the diversity working.
Engagement, neighborhoods, friendships, shared causes. Our kids were in scouts and swam, and they took art lessons, and they had neighborhoods, and they had youth group in church, and there are all these contexts in which they're still getting to show up and get to know folks. It's not like all homeschoolers are just isolated any more than there are people that are in public school. There are kids that are isolated there too.
Hopping back to the question, it was really focused on diversity. When you
well,
go into a room,
better.
are they
know
able
that
to
it was
see?
better.
Right,
It was
but
a
are they able
statement that
to
it's
see
a
people
better
that
way to do it.
look different from themselves?
Right.
Are they able to see people who
sure, absolutely.
act different? You know what I'm saying?
You want to chime in?
Yeah. So
I think you need to explain. Oh, thank you, sweetie. Thank you. Thank you, dear. We've got some beef stew. If we have any new viewers, you guys probably don't know this. I actually married my sister. We have a very happy incest relationship, and we love each other. It's nice because it makes family get-togethers really small and very personal, but we have a happy incest relationship. Okay, let's get back to playing the video.
going from
Lannister
Brooklyn,
style, that's right. Hi,
where we
Grix.
started our homeschool journey, we were part of a black homeschool group. And very African-centered, very much, you know, Marcus Garvey teaching, things like that. Then Daytona, where I grew up. The only homeschool co-ops I could find were, I had to write a statement of faith that
Homeschool co-ops are like peak-based Americana culture. Do you guys think people say America's got no culture? We have examples of this. Homeschool co-ops are like such a cool fucking option. They're such a cool thing that exists only in America. It's such a cool idea that only can happen here. My wife is German. In Germany, you can't homeschool your kids. It's literally, it's illegal. You're not allowed to do it. You'll be fined if you even try. So, or imprisoned, I guess, whatever, for truancy if it goes on for too long. But it really is homeschool co-ops. It's so cool. And so what that means, maybe some people don't know, it's people in your small town, your community, homeschool family, homeschool family, homeschool family, homeschool family, and you all work together. Maybe I'm one of the dads of the homeschool co-op kids, whatever, and I've got an affinity for history. Okay, so on Mondays, all the kids come to our house and I'll teach them history. Maybe Mr. Johnson or Miss Johnson across the block, they're really good at math in their house, and so they take the kids on Tuesdays and they do a math day, and they manage all the math homework and whatever. And so you can Miss Susan down the road, she's really artistically skilled, and so they do an art class or something. And so is anyone doing this? Yeah, so this is what we're talking about. This is actually growing in popularity, homeschool co-ops. We actually have a homeschool co-op in our small town, and I think they're pretty much all over the place. This is a fantasy. What are you No, it's not. No, it's not. This is a real thing. Homeschool co-ops are a real thing. In the town I live in right now, there is a kindergarten co-op and a homeschool co-op beyond that, beyond just kindergarten. And so it's like all ages. And they've got it all regimented. It's actually a really cool thing. It's a really, really cool thing that actually does exist. In fact, we just got done. We just moved out of the town of Vancouver in Washington, and Vancouver actually had a community homeschool co-op resource center that was helping link and it was a brick and mortar building. You could go in and talk to people, and so it was a resource center that was helping link up families and give them resources so that they could better effectively homeschool co-op. It's totally cool. It's totally awesome.
I believe that Jesus Christ is my savior and all this stuff, and I'm like, do I want to sign this paperwork? And then I stalled for like.
What am I hearing? Give me a second. Coming in. Come on in. Come on in. There is a diarrhea poop explosion, baby, upstairs. Oh my goodness.
2 years. And then I was like, you know what? My kids need to be around other kids. And we did it. And we were like the black family in my homeschool group for years. And as a parent, you choose which environments you're going to put your children in to make sure they are experiencing diversity, because it will cripple them if they can't navigate in wherever. I lived in Glasgow for 6 months where, can I touch your hair? You know, I get it. But I specifically put my kids in situations where people talk different from them and they look different from them. My son said in his dance class, he's the only black male. And I have to it's always navigate.
The "can I touch your hair" thing is annoying. Yeah, like I'm gonna tell you a personal story. When I was in elementary school, there was one black kid in our school, really small, Portland, 1990s, early 2000s elementary school. There was one black girl in my school. Her name was Chelsea. She was in my class one year. And I think in hindsight, Chelsea probably had a crush on me. And I never asked to play with her hair. She actually wanted me to play with her hair. Like she was flexing her hair. And I very clearly remember playing with this girl's hair on multiple occasions because she would offer her hair to me. I don't know how else to say that. And it was cool. It was awesome. It was cool. I was making shapes and I don't know, it was kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. I guess it ultimately wasn't my thing, but it was fine, I guess. It was cool.
Navigating diversity,
Cool.
through what lens? So I think we have to help them with that,
Chelsea.
and we definitely need to expose them.
Yeah, I was just gonna push back a little bit because in the situations you're describing, it sounds like those were not at all diverse situations until the one black family, as you said, joined them. So in terms of diversity, I feel like those
So
aren't.
there were Asian families and there were Indian families, and so a little bit of diversity, different diversity, but a lot of times.
If you homeschool, how will the government brainwash your children? Yeah, they'll have to default back to Hollywood, movies, TV shows, music, every radio. They'll still TikTok, every single website. Yeah, they'll find a way.
Times in different homeschool scenarios,
They'll do
my
it.
family was the black family in Daytona Beach. And so we made it diverse.
Just a question to post for the homeschool side. Would you say that all parents are equipped with the diversity aspect of teaching?
Well, no, but I would argue that a lot of the things that you guys are talking about as problems with diversity, that isn't.
That's why I only let my kids use Truth Social and watch BitChute. Yeah, those are true certified-based American websites. That's true. True.
Because of homeschooling or private schooling, it's because of demographics, right? If it's middle of the Americas, right, where it's all white people, you're gonna have the same issues, the same ignorance in the public school as you would in a homeschool or private school. So it's not really related to the type of education you're getting, right? It's related to who you surround yourself with. And if you happen to be in a community that allows for that diversity, right? In homeschool, you do have to make an effort to go out and socialize with people, but you also have more choice in who you socialize with.
I'm imagining like a Craigslist ad. Hey, Craigslist, a Facebook post. Hey, Facebook. We are a white homeschool family, and I'm trying to help my kids understand diversity, so we are looking for black friends. If there are any black families in the neighborhood, I would love to link up, and we can talk diversity. Let's get down to it.
This isn't exactly a diversity thing, it kind of is, but my son, he's a seven-year-old boy, and one of his best friends is an 11-year-old girl. So, and that's because of homeschooling, right? He's not forced to only socialize with second graders. He can make friends with whoever's at the park or whoever, are our friends. And so, like I said, with homeschool, you have that choice and the ability to look outside of what in public school, you're forced to socialize with certain groups.
I'm satisfied with the American education system.
Ooh, no way. Don't.
Well, the question is, am I
Okay.
satisfied? I'm
Okay, dude.
satisfied. I've been working in the public school system, the American public school system, for over
Okay.
25 years. I'm satisfied. Now, do I see room for growth? Absolutely. For example, the start of school in, September, August, it ends in June. Kids get a summer vacation. Teachers are satisfied. Some teachers are unsatisfied with what their salary is, but for the most part, people are happy with their salaries. Kids are happy with what they're learning. They come to
Shabbat tunes in. The issue with homeschooling is that you can't enforce Holocaust denial laws, which is a big problem. Do you agree? Yeah, I mean, if we homeschool our kids, I think we will teach them about the Holocaust. I think my wife will probably teach them about the Holocaust.
school happy for the most part. The lunch system works. Security is working. Kids feel safe at school. They love their teachers. They're making connections. Teachers are making connections with students, with parents.
Whoever said primary source, my wife was not a Nazi. My wife's grandfather was a Nazi. He was in the SS, okay? That doesn't mean that fucking she was there, okay? Different
Stakeholders.
A little bit removed.
Kids are getting educated. People are, getting hired on jobs. We're producing doctors, lawyers, teachers, and the work. And so, yes, I'm satisfied. But again, there's room for growth.
I'm watching a very different movie than you are. I can't quite wrap my head around why the results we're seeing from the system would match it being good. Now, our definitions of satisfied may be different, but I think that's the challenge. It's this conversation we've had about control. And I look at, I think on one extreme, hyper-controlling everything for an output is crazy. But the other extreme is everything being out of control. And that's a lot of what we see. I mean, homeschooling wouldn't be here if all these people thought school was doing a great job. So that's just where I think we struggle with. There's something more in the middle, that we provide enough control, direction to produce a result of an educated population. And I think what most of us are feeling and seeing is that's not happening. We're not getting that result yet.
Dude, your channel sucks now, lol. This is the most mind-numbing shit to watch. Talking about politics and homeschooling, that's more mind-numbing than... Hey guys, what do you think they're going to release in Phase 5 of Season of Discovery? I don't know. Oh gosh, do you think it's going to be a Timbermaw Hold raid? Oh man, I don't know. Maybe it's going to be fucking Mount Hyjal. Let's have that conversation for the 10 trillionth time. Is it going to be Alliance Shaman? And by the way, I still love WoW. We're going to play WoW again in the future at some point, but like, come on. Come on, give me a break. Give me a break. Come on, get real.
I want to speak as someone who still actively is teaching the American education. I have huge frustrations with having to depend on the teachers prior that they're doing their job to 100% excellence. Going into my first year of teaching.
Not sure why, but I do find myself navigating into this stream more often than most, so thank you. We know why. You know why. You know why. Yes. Embrace it. Embrace it. Yes, yes.
Teaching, I taught second grade in Florida, and we had about 25 students. And out of the 25 in second grade, only 8 of them knew how to read. So it's a very frustrating process where my focus as a second grade teacher at that time wasn't necessarily, okay, reading skills. It's, teaching theme, teaching all of these different kinds of ideas and things. But now we're having to.
I've never really thought about it like this, but I actually blame public school for my hatred of reading, which I only really flipped around 3 years ago. I started reading again as an adult about 3 years ago, and I read a lot now. I love reading now. But I spent, I don't know, God, like 15 years, more than that, thinking, I hate reading. It's not for me. Reading is gay. Books are gay, whatever. And I think it's because in public school, I was always forced to read books that I didn't really give a fuck about, what weren't really in alignment with my interests. And then also, if you're reading a book in school, you're reading it in a way that is really not that fun. You're reading it to pass a test or to write an essay or to, you know, sort of try to extract some contrived meaning that the teacher's trying to get out of you. Anyway, you're not reading in a way that is fun, and you're not reading content that you like in the first place. And so I can understand kind of the reason behind why they do it the way they do it, but anyway, for me at least, the message was that I just don't really like reading. And then a couple years ago, I start reading, you know, whatever I want as an adult, and man, I love it. Now, today, it's going to sound crazy. I didn't read a book for, I don't know, 10 years. And now as an adult, I sit here and read a paper book, not internet book, at least 30 minutes a day, every day, for about 3 years now. And I love it. It's like one of the best things ever.
Not waste time, but...
And so my point, I forgot my point. My point was, I'm actually mad. I'm mad at public school for making me think that I hate reading. It's a grudge I hold. They tricked me into thinking that reading was lame, but it's not. It's awesome. It's actually awesome.
Kind of prioritize different things, past standards, past skills that they should have already learned.
Yeah, like from what I'm seeing, apparently there's been a change, at least in the performance. Like for example, like attention spans have been going down. Like kids are starting, like it's starting to become a lot more common for kids to be behind. If you go to like a classroom in my school, it's very common to see at least like 1 or 2 kids on their phones for the entire class, and the teachers oftentimes, they might just have too many kids on their hands to just like stop the class and go, hey Brain, turn off your phone or something like that.
If I was a teacher, I would have a big stick, and I would just start. Actually, never mind. I would love all my students peacefully and respectfully. I would cherish all of my students, is what I would do.
Like that.
Jibu!
As a 17-year-old.
Good evening. Good evening.
I'm starting to see my friends, like a lot of them just stay up doing all-nighters all the time.
Dude, can we acknowledge here for a second? Being a public school teacher has got to be one of the most fucking infuriating jobs of all time. It's like public school teacher, bartender probably is up there. Oh my God. Twitch streamer probably, of course. Oh my God.
Time, and then just sort of being proud of that. Like, personally, I would not be proud to, like I would not go around and tell people that I drank a lot of coffee and was staying up studying until like 4 in the morning. Like other countries, they prioritize the actual absorbment of the materials rather than just trying to get the best score and moving on. And yeah.
Dude, you know what we should watch right now real fast? Speaking about other countries. We should watch some videos of Chinese students being weird and crazy. Chinese students, like studying. Like, oh fuck, like how can we, what is this? Ooh, ancient Chinese technique. This is why they, he's absorbing it. He's sucking it up. That's actually really cute. That's funny. That is funny. There's no way he came up with that on his own. Like, he probably... Chinese high schoolers use IV drips to help study for college.
It's easy to see why these images have gone viral.
What?
Chinese high school students connected to intravenous drips hanging from the classroom ceiling to help them study.
Because of great study pressure, getting up early and going to bed late, it is helpful to take amino acids. It can add extra nutrients to make us better prepare for the exam.
The sign in the classroom at Central China's Shaogan No. 1 High School reads,
That's a lot of
32 days
fucking
left
books.
for college entrance examination. Competition is fierce.
All right, I think we have to answer this question. We need to answer this question. These Chinese kids are coming at you 2 at a time. It is life or death. They are possessed by the evil spirit of Hitler, and they think you're Jewish. They're coming at you in waves of 2. How long do you last? How many? How long do you last? How many? Stay back. I don't, bro. Like this is do or die. Do I have a weapon? No. Nope. This is scary. That's nuts. Cool music though. Cool music. Oh, we're still protesting here.
Is the real and true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up.
I don't think that's like that's no. No. Okay, where were we? Here.
Yeah, like going off of that, like a lot of the material is just sort of becoming disposable in a way, where we're just sort of like getting it, tossing it, and then throwing on to the next thing.
I want to jump on that because that's my biggest thing. I look at what other countries are doing with so much less and just how much better they are than America, and it hurts so much. Teachers are treated so poorly, so poorly. My mom is having so many problems with administration at her school, greedy administration that's abusing the teachers, making their job so much harder to do, because all teachers want to do is educate the kids. Teachers have the type of love for kids that is so unselfish and just so giving, and it hurts so much to see teachers being treated so poorly. Places like...
You know what probably sucks is if you are a normal, like actual normal human teacher and you work at a school where there are insane propagandist teachers, agenda-driven teachers putting shit in their classrooms and just like you know what I'm talking about. And then it's those fucking insane teachers that make people not like you, and you're like a normal great teacher, right? This is a good time to bring something up though. Listen, everyone talks about how retarded Americans are, American students. I want to show you guys something here. It's important to keep this in mind. America is a global leader in educational testing results. This is 2022 PISA mathematics scores. Okay, these are the parses, and I'm not kidding. This is actually all true. Take a look at this, okay? PISA, Program for International Student Assessment, okay? Comparing countries to countries. Singapore, Macau, Taiwan, US Asians. So obviously Asians are the goats. Asians are the mathematical goats. That's undeniable. Then you have Japan, Korea, Estonia, whites on the board. The whites are on the board. Switzerland, US whites. US whites are actually a top 10, top 8, top 9 demographic in the world. Okay, for mathematical scores 2022 PISA. So maybe it's not it's like a 98 parse, maybe not a 99. It's up there. Canada, Netherlands, Ireland, UK, Poland, Denmark, US multiracial people are down here. Here's the United States as a whole. As a whole, here's the US. And that's really all that we have to say. Cambodia, Philippines, Kosovo, not really. Jordan. I mean, you know what's actually insane is that like how is Jordan doing better than like 8 other countries? Jordan is literally a fucking Hezbollah hotbed. How is Palestine? How are Palestine and Jordan doing better than other countries? That's actually fucking insane. That's insane. What's the bottom pink line? There isn't one. The chart actually the chart actually cuts off right here. So there's nothing. There's nothing down there.
Like Finland, Teaching is such a coveted position. You go and you will train to be the best teacher possible, and then you will be compensated for the work you put in, for the job you are doing.
I agree, because I've traveled to Burkina Faso in West Africa, and I was in a classroom with like 48 kids doing Simon Says in French, and you could hear a pin drop when I wasn't speaking.
Okay, I'm having some weird memory. This is in the mid-2000s. There was an initiative. I fill me in, because maybe I'm misremembering, but I feel like this was big drama. Teachers were getting raises or promotions based off of how highly their students were scoring on standardized tests. And so teachers were getting caught faking the scores. Teachers were lying. They were forging the test results in order to get raises and promotions. I remember that. This is like, God, it's got to be like 2005 or something. Long time ago.
I mean, I'm happy that students have teachers like you that will explain things to them, and that will, you know, be the mom that's not, sometimes they don't have parents, and you're being all these roles. It's so much to expect. Then they got to do the test, you know, teach for the testing and this and this. And it's like, even if we could support the teachers with, you know, mental health, something like, oh, here's a free sports membership, gym membership, so you can blow off some steam. Like, even if it's just baby steps. But I think that maybe as homeschoolers, maybe that's something that we can do to support teachers. Because, I mean, we're all trying to do the same thing for our community, which is grow holistic individuals. And we're both, you know,
that's right.
How do we support each other?
Right.
You know?
Kind of touching on what Kian was saying about getting resources too. I feel like it's such a norm in American education where teachers are creating an Amazon wish list. Like I just posted mine last week, you know, and my community really shows up for me, but I really wish it was my administrators that were showing up for me, or just, you know, the school district that was showing up.
Sorry, I don't speak jive. Dude, can I tell you something funny? My wife and I actually watched the movie Airplane for the first time last night. I had never seen the movie Airplane. And this is 1980. We got to that scene with the black guys, and I was like, no way. Are you like for real? That, and so yeah, you can see.
And of course, there's only so many funds that could be allotted in so many areas, but to equip my students for the year that I'm trying to strive for, I know that I have to get a bunch of outside resources compared to just, you know, what is provided to me.
Okay, as we wrap this up, does anyone have any final thoughts, final words they want to say?
Whether your kids go to public school or homeschool, everyone's kind of lived through COVID, so you've had to homeschool your children. Continue homeschooling them. The teachers can't do everything. You're your child's first teacher. They respect you. Teach them. And don't just relinquish all of your responsibility on the public school system or whatever, private or wherever. You're your kid's first teacher.
It's all homeschool, parent involvement and all the rest, but it's all beyond the home where we need teachers.
I'm trying to teach my kids how to join FaZe Clan, so I'm going to have them smoking weed and playing Call of Duty and eating Doritos and drinking Mountain Dew Code Red. That's my plan for my kids.
In whatever field or whatever.
It's going to be awesome.
To add and grow and challenge us. I mean,
yeah.
I think we meet again on that word school, on education. I think that's where that middle ground piece is for all of us.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Seriously, you know, it's not always easy to share your opinions and be so vulnerable, so thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.